can't feel my face. Coffee spilling all over the place. Forgot the sticks, we're turning around. Another weekend in some hockey town. With a pucked up parents, frozen toes, big hearts, bad luck. With a pucked up parents, one more tourney, one more puck. We're broke, we're loud, we love this grind. Cause our kid just scored and we lost our minds.
Greetings and welcome to Pucked Up Parents. I am Michael. Welcome to episode number 22. 22. Wow. We've been married nearly 22 years in the next 2 weeks. So with that said, Angela, how you doing?
I'm good. Always got to say something about our age or something with this intro.
Well, much
welcome.
like our age, we're getting up there in numbers. So our episodes and our ages.
Right. So welcome to Pucked Up Parents. We have been Pucked Up Parents for the last 12 years. We started out as novice first generation hockey parents in a non-traditional hockey town and started this podcast to kind of share what we've learned and learn some more about our experiences with youth hockey.
You know, when this next season starts, we're going to have to flip that number 2. We've been in hockey for 13 years pretty soon. So
13. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's going by. So yes, we are novice hockey parents. I am unathletic. I suck at baseball. I suck at football. I'm uncoordinated and I'm impatient, but we have kids in hockey. Angela and I had to learn it over the course of the last 12 years. She's a little more apt to sports than I am. So that actually helped out quite a bit and way more with organization skills. So with that said, thank you for listening. Thanks for coming along on our journey. We'll hit every subject we can every week, and there's an abundance of subjects when it comes to youth hockey. So, Angela, as we do now in the spring and summer, let's talk about hockey in our lives during the last week. How did hockey impact Michael and Angela? What you got, Angela?
We've had tryouts going on. So in our area, our association that our youngest plays with, had tryouts over the weekend. And our oldest was doing a prospect skate at the university that he intends to go to.
So I'll point out a couple things on those 2 tryouts. Number 1, our 12U made the team he expected to make and the one he wanted, which was good. Our son had a prospect skate with a college, and he went out there with ripped pants, no shells, so his ass must have been partially hanging out. He was sick for going a few days. I'm not making excuses for his performance because he did fine. He had, so he was sick and he had brand new skates to break in. So essentially the kid was a crappy car sitting on $5,000 rims, but he did good.
Right. No, he had skated in the new skates a couple of times and let his allergies get into a sinus infection. So he was, quite the handful when it came to his little illness over the weekend, but it all worked out well. He played well, and just was another one of those things you got to deal with.
Yeah. So we did have tryouts, and I'll point this out: an organization, not one we're involved with any longer, had to send an email out to basically tell the parents of the organization stop contacting coaches about the tryout results and the teams they land on. I guess the coaches were being bombarded with parents, annoying parents probably, and they directed all correspondence to the president of the organization. Did you catch that email, Angela?
Oh, no, I didn't. I've been traveling for work this week, so I didn't catch that. Tryout season is tough. We did an episode on it, but we may need to do another episode on tryout season and kind of the stresses and the rumors and all of the things that happen during tryouts.
It sounds like we need to do one on parent tryout etiquette.
That might be a good thing too. But it's one of those things. If the association put out there who the coach is going to be and didn't specify, reach out to the association with questions, I think there's multiple different ways you can look at that. But those of us as parents should be respectful of, the process, and hopefully coaches are making decisions based on, what they saw on the ice, and we'll give you some honest feedback on how your kiddo or your player did.
I did talk to one of the coaches from that league, and he was telling me stories about how they were being bombarded. I'll share with you offline. We don't want to broadcast anything here. The only other thing I had for
Right.
hockey this past week was I ate a lot of burritos. And the reason why I ate a lot of burritos is because Chipotle had their buy one, get one free. And if anybody knows Chipotle, feeding a family of four, Chipotle is not cheap. So we took full advantage. I sent the 12, he's now a 12-year-old. He just had a birthday. I sent the 12-year-old through the line with his debit card. He bought himself 2 burrito bowls. I came through the line, bought 2 burritos. We actually loaned out jerseys to the neighbors to go get their buy one, get one free. People were hitting me up. And your teenage son, I say your teenage son, Angela, rented out his extra jerseys for $1 a piece. Plus, he got to get all their Chipotle points from said purchase. So our little entrepreneur made a few dollars and got some Chipotle points.
That's an interesting entrepreneurial stance, to only charge $1 for the rental, but I do like the addition of the Chipotle points because those will come in handy for him.
All right, let's talk about our last episode. What did we talk about?
Last episode, we talked about hockey fees and cost. What does it cost to get your kid to tryouts? Not only signing up for the tryout itself, but what to expect when it comes to league fees. And you get these offers from teams and they want you to go ahead and pay that deposit. And we talked about reading the fine print and knowing what to expect, and what the association or the league expects to provide you for what you're going to pay them for your player to be on that team.
Is layaway still a thing? Can I put my hockey fees on layaway?
I don't know that layaway is a thing. That might have gone away with Kmart, but
You see, kids,
you
Kmart was
can.
a store back in the much similar to Walmart, whose poor business planning led to their downfall in the early 2000s.
So I don't know about layaway, but I think a lot of associations offer essentially a payment plan. So you're not paying the fee up front, and you're paying that fee divided up over maybe 4 or 5 months or something along those lines. But again, that's where I go back to read the fine print.
Read the fine print, listen to our last episode. So I mentioned that our 12 or now 12-year-old just had a birthday. He's not 12 now. So that led us kind of into today's topic. Angela, what are we talking about today?
Hockey siblings. So most of the time, at least in our experience, it's a lot of younger siblings that are often called rink rats. The kids who are hanging out at the rink all the time. Could really be anyone, but somebody who spends countless hours at a hockey rink and not necessarily playing hockey. They're the ones who are, running around the warm room or the lobby of the rink, playing with friends, doing some other things.
So, all right, I got a kid in hockey. I got another kid. We hit this from the ground running. As soon as our oldest Sam started playing hockey, we had a newborn. Henry was just born right when hockey, a few months after or a few months before hockey started. So, Angela, I got a sibling. He ain't playing hockey right now. What the puck am I doing with him?
So we started our hockey life with the infant in a either stroller or like the backpack carrier. I think I mentioned in an earlier episode that I really felt like a hockey mom when I had a toddler in a backpack on my back and I was bending over tying hockey skates for the older one. So, some of these kids really do grow up in the rink. And I think our youngest is a prime example of that. He literally started out in his onesie fleece thing that kept him warm in the rink, and we were carrying him in that carrier or backpack carrier as he got a little older, and has spent essentially his whole life at the rink.
Yeah, you're bundling those siblings up like Randy from the Christmas Story. They can't move; their arms are sticking out. They look like almost like a starfish because you're trying.
Right.
Our rink is not very well insulated. You're trying to keep them warm and get them acclimated to the rink. What other things? So
Right.
you have the newborn. Clearly, they can't do much, so you're just kind of swaddling them, trying to temper down the crying and trying to feed them when necessary. As they grow, As my dad used to say, you get a, tricycle motor, you get a rug rat, you get a rink rat, I guess, in this scenario. So what are we doing with them?
Exactly. Yeah, so I think the rink rats, they often go towards and find other rink rats and they end up in a pack. So you get a pack of rink
I'm
rats.
sorry,
So
you're describing this like a National Geographic observing wolves in the wild. We've noticed that they migrate towards the concession stand about second period. They travel in packs of five, and they all have snot running down their nose.
well, and then they leave a trail of trash behind as well.
And they leave a trash trail behind and just
So
behind in their wake.
well, a lot of people have, multiple kids, and a lot of times those kids are approximately the same age. If you've got one on one team and you've got some younger siblings, there's probably a player on that team with some younger siblings that are about the same age. So I think they kind of group up and gang up, for lack of a better term, and find their little clique and start playing their games or sharing their toys or snacks or whatever.
Observe this. We can tell a pack has passed through. There's smudgy fingerprints all over the boards right now, all over the glass. You can't see, but you see Cheeto stained fingerprints and fruit snacks. Let's follow the trail and see where it lines up. Oh, it's in the bathroom. They're in the bathroom causing havoc in there. So yeah, your kids are at the kids got legs under them. They're running around. They travel in packs of five. Honestly, I put this out on social media. I asked about siblings at the rink, and you could tell the division between parents who have these younger kids and the patience that they have with them versus single kid parents. Or I actually have like a coach who had no kids. He was a coach complaining about the kids. So there's a divide there. I mean, it's like flying on an airplane with a baby. If you have if you had kids or you had a baby and you've been in that scenario and they're screaming, you understand. If you don't, you're kind of angry. Would you agree?
I mean, I think that's part of it, but I think there's also got to be a balance too of, these kids are at
Absolutely.
the rink is if they're behaving, if they're running around and they're behaving and they're not wreaking havoc, they're not leaving trash behind, they're not interfering with the regular business of the rink, as I'll call it. I think that's fine, but I think there are times when some of the kids can get out of control and, hey, where's the parent? The rink rats are, losing it and they're running around or they're impeding the entrance or, something along those lines. I think that's where parents need to step up and maybe be a little bit more conscientious.
I'll say this for the bleachers. When you sit in the bleachers and you get those kids that are gathered two or three of them, and it's inevitable that these kids will stand right in front of you, and you're like, hey, little buddy, you don't want to yell at them because they're not your kids. Hey, can you just move over? I can't see the game going on.
Right. That, or they're like jumping up and down on the bleachers right next to you and you're trying to watch the game.
But not only that, they're jumping up and down the bleachers, and what inevitably happens? They eat it. They eat it hard
Yeah.
down the bleachers. You get a kid that's like two or three jumping up and down the bleachers, and if it's those aluminum bleachers with like nothing in between them, they're eating it on the bleachers. You hear a thud and then a wailing, and it happens every single toddler I think it's been at the rink has done that.
Oh, for sure. I think some of the other things, that you see with these rink rats, they will, run around the rink and try to find pucks. So pucks that have come off the ice or out of the area of play, they'll run around, get behind the boards into small spaces, looking for those pucks that have gone off the ice.
Also, rink rat sounds a bit derogatory. Can we call them like just siblings or youth kids or hockey siblings? Rink rat sounds just
Hockey siblings.
yeah. Not only that, I'll say a lot of these bleachers, they probably have a ton of toys underneath them where kids drop toys. And our kids have actually spelunked for like a Hot Wheel underneath those bleachers, which is absolutely disgusting because, you got people spilling coffees, people spilling Coke, boozers dropping their alcohol. But these kids will like drop a Hot Wheel or something and have to go under there. Or if you're a parent like me on some rinks, you're like, yeah, we're just going to leave that.
Right, because it's all dusty and or you can't get to it. It's blocked off in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I think that's, always a watch your bleachers, know what you're dealing with, know if you could drop something, whether if it's gone, if you drop it, or if you're going to have to do that expedition under the bleachers.
Much like a car ride or airplane ride especially with like a 3 or 4 year old, you wonder how we survived as kids. So I see this note here that you have. You see these kids, and what do? You know, it's inevitable, but it helps. Here's a tablet. Play a game.
Right.
Video. And to stay with your wolves in the mist or gorillas in the mist theme, they tend to migrate to areas where there's an outlet if the iPad is dying. So they'll be found near outlets.
Yes, if you're going to look for them, look for an outlet, especially if they have one of those electronic devices and a charging cord. They're definitely going to seek that out. And sometimes those outlets can be in crazy places. So they're, sitting on the floor under a table or, at the bottom of the bleachers on the side or, something along those lines. So that's definitely something to look out for too.
The key is to keep your kids out of trouble. Keep an eye on them. There are parents there who are trying to watch a game. I mean, have respect for everybody, but kids are going to be kids. We totally get that. But if your kid is doing balancing acts on the skating support stack that's 4 foot high next to parents and they're going to fall and break their neck, maybe find them something else to do.
Well, so that takes me to, the sibling gear. What do you, we did an entire episode on parent gear. What do you take into games? What do you have with you in your bag? What blankets do you have? What coats do you wear? Same thing for siblings. You've got to come up with, making sure that they have a coat or a jacket if they're going to be inside the rink. Are they going to stay in the warm area? Do they have a blanket? Do you have enough snacks for them? Because we know as soon as the game starts, they're going to say, hey, I want to go to the concession stand or the vending machine, things along those lines. Or does mom or dad have a bag of snacks?
Right. As soon as you plant your ass on that bleacher and the horn drops for the first period, that toddler's grabbing you or that 3 year old's grabbing you and saying, hey, I'm hungry. What you got to eat?
Snack time.
Snack time. Exactly. And then it's almost like you're doubling up because when you pack the car in the morning for the rink, you're packing all your kids' hockey gear, the sticks. Again, we talked about this. Don't forget stuff. But you almost have a subset of that where you're packing for the sibling, the toys to entertain them, the snacks to keep them busy, the juice boxes to get them along. Now, when you get to the rink, it's a different story because I remember Henry. We'd get him in the rink and we'd start putting the warm clothes on, and it's a fight. It's a fight to get the jacket on. It's a fight for him to keep the gloves on. It's a fight to put the not toboggan, the beanie on his head. It's a fight the whole way through. And again, they end up looking like Randy from a Christmas Story.
Right, exactly. But then you also, you want to keep them entertained as well. So, like you mentioned, you've got the toys, you've got a coloring book, you've got the electronic devices. Whatever it is that's going to keep your kid entertained during that game is going to need to be added to your things to take to a hockey game list. And as we've talked about before, that list gets pretty long.
It certainly does. And the snacks, especially, it's just keeping them pleased for the time being. Fruit snacks are a good thing to do. Bites of fruit are a good thing to do. It's constant stimulating. You got to keep the kids stimulated during the game, and then chances are, again, we had I think he was 8 or 9 year old when Henry was actually starting to be a toddler and be a baby. Sam was that super young age, so we were playing those super young games. So the poor little Henry's having to get up at 6 a.m. So is there times he actually slept on the bleachers? I mean, he asleep on the bleachers? Did we go through that?
Never slept on the bleachers, but I know when he was real little, he would sleep in the carrier. You've got him on the front carrier or the back carrier or whatever. Yeah, the papoose kind of thing. He would definitely sleep in that as a infant, but I don't think as a toddler he really did much sleeping in the bleachers because at that point we weren't traveling much and most of our games were pretty close to home at that point.
And because your younger sibling, much like ours, grows up in the rink, the staff become very familiar with your kid. Sam's coaches would all like yell his name. They still yell his name when they see him to this day. He has no idea what it means. They meet the Zamboni driver. They meet the guy working the door. They meet the owner. In our case, we knew the owner. Your kid becomes a part of that rink.
Yeah, they absolutely just grow up in that rink and they know everybody that works there. And we actually know a few kids who have gone from that rink rat status to hockey player status to now are working at the rink in some capacity. And it's usually, at the concession stand or, handing out skates during public skate kind of thing. So it's interesting to see that evolution.
I was talking to our again, I was talking to our 12-year-old last night about this episode that we were going to do, and I go, "Wow, it's wild. You don't know of a world where hockey didn't exist, where we didn't go to hockey rinks." And I said, it existed before you, and it existed when we had Sam up until his, fifth birthday. We had never stepped foot in a rink as a family until Sam turned 5, and then Henry, from day one, was in a rink. So it's wild to him to think that, yeah, that world didn't exist at some time for this family.
Right, right. Yeah, and he was the one that started skating when he was 2, whereas, our older son didn't start skating until he was 5. So, there's a lot of differences in that. And those younger siblings see what their older siblings are doing. And sometimes they want to follow that path, and other times they want to go a different direction. So, what I want to get into, or go ahead.
I was going to say, let's we can get into that our next subject. Let's get to, are we there yet? Rinks and road trips. And in this subject, we'll talk about the siblings' path to playing hockey because big sibling did, or not playing hockey. What do you have?
Right. So I think sometimes, like I was just saying, sometimes the sibling just doesn't want to play hockey at all. And if they get, to kind of that older age and they find that they have other activities that they want to do, and then you've got multiple kids doing multiple different activities, and you've got to find a way to balance that with multiple children and with the parents and the caregivers. How do you manage that?
It's wild in sports how family sports when it's implied. So if your brother plays hockey, it's almost implied that you play hockey. If your dad plays hockey or your dad plays baseball, it's almost implied that the kids can play baseball. I remember I met, unrelated story, but sort of similar. I met Johnny Bench's son, Johnny Bench, Hall of Fame catcher for the Cincinnati Reds. And I met his son. His son was a big, tall dude. And we were just putting together a softball team for a rec league. And I said, "Hey, you should play softball with us. I'm sure you're amazing." He goes, "Actually, I'm terrible at softball and baseball," which is wild. So, to the siblings' point, the older sibling may love to play hockey, but the young brother doesn't want to play, and that's kind of what you do. So, to Angela's point, they may take up guitar lessons or soccer or something else. Don't force.
Right. Or it could be the other way around too, where you have an older sibling that doesn't play, but the younger sibling wants to play. And suddenly that kind of changes the dynamics of, family life on the weekend.
With our youngest, there was never pressure. Obviously, we were at the rink. I guess that's the pressure that we put on it. He wanted to be on the ice immediately. We tried soccer. We tried baseball. None of those took. It was always hockey, and I guess it was because we were committed with it with Sam.
Well, and I think it's just, some kids are drawn to that, and some kids are really drawn to their older siblings, and want to do what they want to do, what the older sibling is doing. And I think that's fine. But no, when an older sibling starts playing hockey, the younger one might get the bug too. And then we get into really the divide and conquer situation.
We hit this very, very early. I can still recollect Henry being at the ice rink for the first time on skates. It was during a birthday party for I think might have been Sam's birthday
It
party.
was Sam's birthday. Yeah.
Henry might have been 2, and he forced Angela, not me, because he knows that Dad can't skate, to get out there. And Angela basically held him the whole time. And I remember you coming off going, "My arms are killing me because if I set him down on the blades, he's just going to eat it every time." So I think he was getting mad because you wouldn't put him down, but when you did put him down, he'd fall and he'd get mad again.
Yeah, it was, so that was definitely difficult because I was bending over and having, the backache from bending over and letting him pretend to skate. But if I let go, he'd immediately go down. And then I remember taking him off the ice and he started screaming and crying because he wanted to go back on the ice. So around that time, obviously, he was still very young at that point, but it was very clear that's what he wanted to do. So that's when we kind of started in on the skating lessons. And then guess what? We're at the rink even more.
We immediately rode him into the skating lessons. We took the advice of the rink. We kind of watched it. We didn't want to stick him out there at age 2 or 3 because, again, there was older kids. He was way too young to be out there for skates. And I'll tell you one thing: the difference between the first and second, he had no lack of equipment once it was time to play hockey because we had a lot of the equipment. So unfortunately, the younger sibling gets the hand-me-downs. It's right. I mean, we did get.
Right.
He wore
Yeah.
he'd be out there in Sam's old jersey with the Mauser on the back, the different number. He'd be wearing the old skates and the old beater stick. Poor kid had hand-me-downs for quite a few years.
Right, but when you've already spent the money on the equipment the first time, then you might as well use it again. And then I think we got to a point where it was like, okay, we're going to start buying, newer, nicer, non-hand-me-down equipped for the younger son. And that was really exciting for him because he's like, oh, this is my first pair of shin pads that are just mine. Instead of, hey, these were my brother's. He wore them for 2 years and now they're mine.
Yeah, let it be known the reason why we did that was because the older child was so hard on equipment that it was just the time he was done with it, it was destroyed and disintegrated, as evidenced by his pants at the senior prospect tryout over the past weekend where they were blown out the back.
Right. Yeah. And I think the other thing that comes with siblings playing the same sport, and at least for us, is the competitiveness between the two of them.
Oh yeah,
They're constantly talking about, oh, I'm better than you were at this age, or you're not as good as me, and things along those lines. And they get pretty competitive.
you're saying at I was or you I'm better than you at this age. They're at this point where they argue about who's better now. So I've got the 12-year-old
Right.
arguing with the 18-year-old about who's better at hockey, or so who has a better shot, who can skate better. It's a fight, and it's funny you say that because at tryouts for our 12-year-old, his former our oldest son's former coach ran out after us, stopped us, and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that Henry is better than Sam was at this age." And I go, "Oh man, I don't know if I can tell Sam that because that will chap his ass to no degree."
Right, which just does nothing but spur the competitiveness and the arguing between the siblings.
Well, and Henry said, he goes, "Dad, I am." He was like, "I am better than him. I am better than him." I go, "You know, there's a reason you're better than him if that's the case." And he goes, "Why?" I go, "Because you came up in hockey. And who do you think taught you most of what you know about hockey? Your older brother did. So this is what happens."
Right. Not only did he have more experience with being around the rink, having an older sibling that was playing, we also learned a lot over those years too, and we were better able to navigate associations and teams and practices and camps and all of those things. We had got our feet under us better
We were
on
the
round two.
we were and are now the grizzled vets because we have an older son. When we go to the 12U, and yeah, you try to. I don't know how to say it. It's a different game when you're watching a varsity player versus a 12U team. So you're kind of like you have to adjust each time you watch each game. Now we only have two kids. I have two kids that I know of. That's a joke. Sorry, Angela.
Oh,
Uh,
jeez.
these parents that have multiple kids, like three, four, five, six, I don't know how they do it, especially with sports and extracurricular activities. Any insight on that?
I think, not all, we talk about divide and conquer a lot, and we're playing man to man. There's some other parents that have more than two kids that are in zone defense because they've got multiple kids that have to go various different directions. And I think those parents often rely on other parents that are on one of their kids' teams to help them out, getting them to practices or games or tournaments. Again, hockey family is a thing. We try to help each other out in those situations. And I think grandparents and other family members and friends often step up when you've got multiple kids playing a sport that is as intensive and as demanding as hockey is.
Needy. The word's needy. Hockey is very needy. It's like a needy girlfriend. You love her, but damn it, she's needy.
Right. I mean, there's just a lot of things, and you can only be in so many places at one time. So I think that's definitely something to consider if you have, or if you're a single parent with two kids, how do you manage that? It's that, man-to-man defense of how do you manage your kids versus the, hey, we got to play zone. We're going to figure out how to do this.
The divide and conquer is pretty difficult, especially when it comes to game time, because you don't want to miss the accomplishments. You don't want to miss the events. You don't want to miss the games. Prime example was me. I didn't get to see Sam win the state championship. It sucked. It hurt. But I couldn't not, I couldn't abandon the other kid during his last tournament. It was his last year in tournament, and they won the tournament. I was happy to be there. If they lost in one of the early rounds, I was heading down to see Sam. But you miss some big events from the other kid, and it's difficult, but it's necessary. You can't favor one kid over the other. It wouldn't be fair to them.
Well,
Although
and we do have some, I was going to say, we have some tools to kind of alleviate that or make it a little less difficult because a lot of these games are being streamed. Whether, both of our kids' teams stream on YouTube. In the past, we've streamed on Facebook. We've streamed on, some of those other, I think some of the sites that aren't even a thing anymore, like Periscope and, different ways to watch the game. A lot of people use Live Barn where you can log on and watch the game. So I know I've been sitting in the bleachers at one game with my phone in my hand watching a second game, on my phone.
I've absolutely done that. And occasionally you get the unicorn. The planets align. You have a January tournament in Cleveland for the 12-year-old. What's that? I just looked at the 18-year-old schedule. They're in Cleveland the same weekend. Oh my gosh, it's the same rink. Wow. We get that maybe once a year. Would you agree?
If that, maybe once a year might be pushing it.
Okay.
It's definitely an anomaly. Yeah, definitely an anomaly. Unless you have, the situation where you're the parent and you're also the team manager of both teams, and you can strategically schedule your kids at the same tournament, or in the same town, the same weekend kind of thing.
I'll shout them out because I think they listen to Hobbs family that was on our 12U's team. They would totally do that because they're the older kid. And I saw that and I'm like, wow, more power to you. Well played.
Right.
While you're the manager, you deserve to do this. I applaud what you just did because I always saw their older son at the rink and I'm like, they must have a tournament this weekend too. Yeah, of course they do. She's the manager. Well played. And that's a perk. If general managers of these teams are in need, they're volunteers by parents. If you have two kids and you want your weekends to line up, become the general manager, line it up. Excellent, excellent move and an excellent incentive to become a manager of a team.
Side note, being the manager of a team is not an easy job. So know what you're getting into. I think that's an episode we need to do in the future with somebody that has done that job, because I know there's a lot that goes into that. So don't take that lightly, but it is a perk if you are able to do that. And you have that ability to jump in and time, because it's a real time suck to do a lot of this team manager stuff, because you're doing a lot of scheduling. It's a lot of administrative work.
That's true. Let's get to our next segment. Life moves pretty fast. Angela, let's talk about reflections. This is a quick episode. We did a quick, you're out of town. So we're gonna reflect on our siblings at the rink. What do you have?
Well, I mentioned this a few minutes ago. Players, coaches, rink staff, younger siblings, older siblings, family members, they all become one big family. You all start kind of watching out for each other. And I know, especially with our older son's team, we were with some of the same kids for such a long time that we were literally helping each other parent. If I saw one of the kids that I knew really well and knew the parents really well, I'd be like, hey, you got to stop doing that. Your mom's not going to like that kind of thing. We've really helped each other out so much over the years. And it really does take a village to raise one hockey player, but it takes a village to raise a hockey family, whether your other kids play hockey or not.
You befriend these other kids. I mean, I found myself tossing football with the siblings, or helping them out with tying their shoes, or anything like that. We say it at the end of every show. We're all in this together, and we truly are. So, if you're a parent with one child, or if you're a coach with no child, or somebody with the associate with no child, have some patience with these parents that have multiple siblings. They want to, as a parent, you want to watch your game. You want your full attention on your kid on the ice, and sometimes it's difficult to get that other eye on the other kid and keep them happy at the same time. So just everybody keep your patience. Rinks already heated as they are, especially with parents opposing each other, kids out there destroying each other on the ice. Yelling at little kids is not going to accomplish anything. Not your own kids. It's not going to accomplish anything. Let's
Right. I think, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the tip of the week, but are you want to do something else?
No, go ahead.
Okay. And that leads us to our tip of the week. Angela, what do you have for tip of the week for siblings?
I really struggle with this one. I think, the tip of the week is if you've got one child playing hockey and the other one wants to play, great. If they don't want to play, that's great too. I wouldn't force a sibling into playing hockey just because you're at the rink. I think that's probably not the best way to go about it. And so maybe that's my tip of the week is, yeah, this is great for one child, but it might not be for the other. And you got to figure that out kind of individually.
Mine is empathize with that younger child. If you're taking them to the rink for every practice, every game, it's probably going to pile on them. Give them some of the attention they need, the attention they deserve, especially if they do, to Angela's point, another sport or another activity outside of hockey. They deserve just as much attention as the hockey kid does. So please keep them in track.
Absolutely. One other thing with the divide and conquer, don't always do the same division. Split it up, mix it up, have a different parent, different grandparent, different family, so that everyone gets to spend time with whichever child needs that attention that week.
We actually rolled ours into, we did the tournaments as mini vacations. So it allowed the sibling to see the city. So we take them to the museums, we take them to see the sites. So it did benefit the kid to see cities, even though hockey was wrapped around it, to let the young guy enjoy the trip outside of hockey by doing those extracurricular activities.
Right. And sometimes that's even just staying at the hotel. There was a point in time where Henry was just happy that he got to spend the night at a hotel.
Henry, every time we go to a hotel, he'd jump on the bed, lay back and say, I'm on vacation. And you'd be in some crappy motel on the outskirts of Cleveland. And to him, that was his vacation. So yes,
right.
We made it fun. All right, we'll move into the outro, Angela. Quick episode this week. Next week, we have an upcoming episode, which leads me into our small business shout out. And our next, damn it, let me start that again. I can't, I'm trying to not say next episode because I got to get it edited and everything dropped.
Right.
All right, that leads us into our small business shout out. Now we have an upcoming episode where we're going to do an interview, and that interview is with Christy Cassiano. She is an author. She's wrote books on being a hockey parent, and now she writes children's book in a hockey theme. They are called The Puck Hog. So look up The Puck Hog. She's a book author. She's a news, what do you call them?
Newscaster.
She's a newscaster in Syracuse, New York. And she's also writes articles for USA Hockey Magazine. Now, if you pay your USA Hockey fees, you get this magazine in every month or every 2 months. So she writes articles for them. And she's also, of course, a hockey parent. So we're going to sit down, have a little conversation with her, and prior to or up to the episode, we will have a giveaway. She was quite kind enough to send us copies of her children's books, and we are going to have a little giveaway on social media to pass some of those out. They are autographed by Christy, autographed by the illustrator. So look for a giveaway coming up soon and an interview coming by us. So Angela, take us to our outro.
Appreciate everyone listening. Please follow, subscribe, and share. Leave us any comments or questions. If you have ideas for episodes or things that you think we should touch on or questions for us, let us know. We have active accounts on both Facebook and Instagram.
That's right. And we do have merchandise. Look at the top of the page for the merchandise and look for a giveaway soon. Again, these are not books for your 17-year-old child. These are more for kids under, 7 or 8, but they are hockey themed books. I actually sat down and read them just so I could be familiar with it for the interview. Quick reads for me because I read quite a bit, but very cute stories. And I really did like them. The illustrations were great. So look for that coming up soon. Like, listen, follow, share, comment, as Angela said. And remember, keep your stick on the ice. We are all in this together, including the siblings. Thank you.
Out before dawn, can't feel my face. Coffee spilling all over the place. Forgot the sticks, we're turning around.